Hey there, sorry here. So last month I did a sort of a preparing for Clash of Wills video, and I wanted to try to do another one this time. You know, I think I've sort of cleaned up the formatting a little bit. I'm going to try a few little different things in this video from what I did last month. Hopefully you find it more helpful. If so, certainly, if there's anything I didn't cover that you'd like me to cover in future videos, or if you really like this type of video, definitely let me know in the comments below. But first, I'll start off just by covering the Clash of Wills news. I'm not going to do the rest of the news. There's plenty of other content creators out there that do that. So this is the first boss of Season 8. And typically the first bosses of a season are sort of on the easier side of things. Now, we are sort of, getting into the leader skill era. And so I don't know if they're going to tune this boss for, expecting you to have a leader skill unit in order to rank well in this event. They very well may. We have quite a few leader skills out there already. Obviously, the upcoming Clash of Wills unit is going to be a leader skill unit. We've got Ibarra, we've got Dio, we've got Rain, we've got Laswell. So there are quite a few leader skills out there now, so they might be thinking, all right, we can start tuning these bosses for leader skills. We'll just have to wait and see. Maybe not. All right. But the boss is Mimikres, which is a moon of unknown origin, but apparently it mimics its form, and it is just mimicking a giant crescent moon. So I don't know if there's some lore, some history behind that name. I haven't actually done any research into the name. I know sometimes they actually pull names from from mythology and things like that. Could be something behind that, but could be just something they totally made up. But anyways, let's get to the nitty gritty. So it is a beast and stone type monster. So, right away start thinking about units that have beast killer or stone killers in their kit, units that can buff beast killer, units that can, mitigate against beast and stone damage, right? So those are the sort of things right away you want to start thinking about when planning out a team. All right, and the first unit that stands out above all the others is Chizuru, because she has 250% self killers to beast and stone. So it's right away, boom, Chizuru. I'm really hoping Chizuru is going to stand out on this one. She's an older unit, but man, she's still just amazing what she can do. It is weak to fire, lightning, and dark, and fire is going to be the main weakness because we just got flaring Aether Rain. Dwayne is a fire unit, so fire is the one that they're sort of pushing for this one. It is also weak to lightning and dark. I'll say fire and dark are obviously going to be the strongest elements on this one, just because of the the recent leader skill units that we have with Rain and Dwayne coming up, and then dark, obviously, if you have an Ibarra or Deoxys. Those are going to be really, really strong. Lightning could also be strong if you have Sylvie, right? Because Sylvie still has that 100% party lightning amp, all right? And then if you bring someone like Sakura for the big lightning and peril field, you could probably still get away with a lightning team. But I think fire and dark are going to be the dominant teams that we're going to see in this particular fight. But who knows, all right? We'll just have to wait and see. Now, as far as what the boss does, the boss is going to use dark and non-elemental physical and magic attacks. Now, it's not quite clear from this wording which is going to be more prominent. We've had a lot of bosses that do predominantly magic attacks. This boss may decide to do predominantly physical attacks, but if there are going to be non-elemental magic attacks in there, you're going to probably want a magic tank, and then use some other method to mitigate the physical damage to the party, either whether it be mirage or imbuing the boss with an element and then absorbing it. In the case of Melissa, Melissa would allow the party to absorb dark if it's doing a lot of dark physical. Or if it's doing a lot of non-elemental physical, she can imbue the boss, things like that, right? So personally, I'm going to start with a magic tank and use Mirage or other forms to mitigate the physical. But if it's like, you know, if we get in there and the boss is doing like basically nothing but physical and then just like dark magic damage, then, you know, we'll kind of switch things around. Deals fractional AP damage. That's like gravity attack. So it's going to do, you know, it might start the battle again with like a 90% HP attack like the last boss did. So that's what that fractional AP damage is. It says it buffs self and grants itself Mirage. So that's fantastic. So, you know, just keep in mind you're going to have a unit prepared to eat away some Mirage stacks. And so sort of prepare accordingly. Obviously, if you're bringing pure mages, they don't have to worry about that. But most of the units we're bringing in here, even if they're mages, they're going to be physical mages like Olive or Ibarra. And you would still need to get rid of the Mirage stacks before those units could deal any damage. So keep that in mind. It says the number of attacks increases over time. So that's kind of interesting. The last boss, Nabanoga, kind of did that where, you know, as you got further into the fight, it would do more attacks. So it would do more magic attacks, more physical attacks. And so by the end of the fight, it was getting pretty dangerous. And so that's something, again, just to sort of keep in mind and sort of plan accordingly for that. Now it says it counters if not dealt fire or dark elemental damage. This is the third time that we've seen this where it specifically leaves out lightning damage. So again, this is another reason why we're probably not going to see very many lightning teams in this one, because dealing lightning damage doesn't stop the counterattack. And you know, you always want to hit it with the weak element so that it doesn't do its counterattack, which is, you know, usually it's like a big morale buff or, you know, a big wipeout AoE damage move or something like that. And not including lightning in that list means, you know, if you go a lightning team, it means you're going to have somebody on the team that's still dealing some fire or dark damage every turn. So that's kind of annoying. I don't know why they left lightning off the list. Like, what's what's the point? It's not like lightning element is so strong that you have to force everybody into the other two elements. I don't understand it. Maybe they're going to come out with some unit halfway through Clash of Wills that's like a crazy good lightning unit. It would be awesome if they like gave Esther like some Silver Crown buffs or something halfway through and made her like stupid strong for this fight. But I don't see that happening. Would be great if it did, but don't count on it. So yeah, I don't understand why they left lightning off the list, but you know, it's fine. Personally, I'm going to be going with a fire team, so we'll just see how that goes. So something that they didn't include here is, if you remember last time against Nabanoga, they included the, or they sort of forewarned us about the reduction in attack for the party, and they haven't said anything about that in this notice. It's not listed anywhere in this notice, like, you know, what if there are any new bonus mods or anything like that. So I'm hoping that they have not included any kind of like attack reduction, mag reduction, or anything like that. They still might, but they haven't noted it here. And so hopefully that means they've just decided that, you know, those are no good, and they're not going to do those for, at least not for this fight. They might still do them again in the future. We'll just have to wait and see. All right, but that also tells me that they're probably going to tune the bosses with leader skills in mind. All right, because otherwise, I would imagine they would include like an attack and magic reduction if they weren't going to touch the boss's defense and spirit or anything like that. I assume they would have put in the attack and mag reduction to account for leader skills. So keep that in mind. For this Clash of Wills, boosting your resistance to breaks will greatly increase your morale, so keep that in mind. Fortuna Pass, I'm not really going to talk about all that. I do want to talk about the upgrades to the Celestite Signet of Will. So it got some nice upgrades. It used to be a flat 90 to all stats. Now it's flat 100 to all stats if you upgrade it to the plus version. And so we, personally, I'm going to upgrade both of my rings to the Magister's Plus. I think the Magister's rings are the best way to go because everyone can equip them. All right, everyone can equip accessories, so there's no restrictions there. And so, that's 2 sources of chain cap boost that you have for your party right there. And now they give 200 flat stats plus the chain cap boost. And that's really, really, really great. The Emperor's only got, I'm kind of surprised because the Emperor's only went up to 300 to all stats. And so really the Emperor's just isn't really as good anymore. I mean, if you absolutely don't need, 2 sources of chain cap boost, then that's fine. But I think the Magister's is the clear winner on this list. Now, if you don't need chain cap boost, you don't need flat stats, but you need killers, these 2 are actually really, really strong now. The Explorers and Nomads, they're actually quite good if you're really hurting for killers. Because they now go up to 100% killers to 3 different races, and they add some flat stats to your attack and mag on top of it, which is really, really nice. So the Explorers does dragons, insects, and plants by 100%, and the Nomads does beasts, avian, and aquatic by 100%. So that's pretty significant. 100% killer to 3 races on an accessory is really nice. So yeah, it's definitely not a bad choice there. If you're good on chain cap boost, you don't really need the stats, but you need the killers. Good options right there. And then the Physicians, this is just sort of like the basic one that you get for free, I believe. And yeah, it comes with that ability where you can boost your resistance to status ailments and breaks, right? So if you need it, you can. There are times when people wish they had like Jade Moon Pendant, and this basically does the same thing as that. And so you can pick that one up if you really, really need it. All right. I also want to touch on the Clash of Wills Obnixus drop shop. They are white or helio drops this time. And I just want to cover what's in here. So we've got the unit list that you can choose from. We've got Kaito right there at the top, who is still a top tier breaker and support unit in Clash of Wills. So if you still have yet to pull a Kaito, or if you're like a newer player, and you can get the shards, or sorry, you can get the drops from this Clash of Wills, definitely consider picking up a Kaito. If you're close to getting him to EX2 or EX3, this is a great opportunity to pick up a copy for some shards. He's still a really, really great unit. I probably won't use him on this current Clash of Wills just because his killers don't match up, but when his killers do line up, he can be really, really exceptional, and he's still the only unit that can effectively roll back undispellable breaks as long as they are 3 turns or less. And so, yeah, he's got a lot of really great utility and very unique utility that he brings to the table. So Kaito is a great unit to see in the shop. Lulu and Vaughn are also really nice to see because they're both very strong breaker and peril units. Lulu is a strong water imperiler. She brings a 160% water imperil on her SLB, and also does, I think, an 89% spirit break, whereas Vaughn does a 160% fire imperil with an 89% defense break. Really great to see those 2 units in the shop. Personally, I'm going to go for Vaughn, I think, but Lulu is a great pickup as well. And then Kresnik, Napi, and Behemi. Kresnik's still really awesome as a general Clash of Wills support unit, healer, morale filler, and all of that stuff. So if you don't have them, and if you don't have a Melissa, Kresnik's still a good pickup, I would think. Napi and Behemi, though, I don't really know. I don't. they're kind of at the bottom of that list for a reason, because they're honestly not that good anymore. So I don't know that I would bother spending your drops on either of those two units. What I like to try and do when I look at the units on this list is look at them and sort of get an idea of what's coming in future Clash of Wills. So we see, you know, Kaito and Lulu are both water focused, so I think we might be seeing another water weak Clash of Wills boss coming up, maybe the next one or the one after. Vaughn is obviously well suited for this one, being a fire weak boss. Napi and Bahimi are both sort of earth focused, so we might be getting an earth weak Clash of Wills boss at some point in this season. So it's just kind of fun to speculate a little bit by looking at the units that are in the shop. Now, the other two things are the materias, Wing Clipping and Perfect Provocation. All right, and they have them listed here, which is really great. So Wing Clipping is a materia that boosts physical and magic damage against beasts, dragons, insects, and avians, or birds by 50%. That's four races, so 4 killers right there in one materia. Only 50%, but still, really, really great. It's not stackable, but you can buy 2 of them. They're usually like 1,000 drops each. Okay, and it is physical and magic damage. I'm definitely going to pick up 2 of these. You know, never say no to a materia that's got 4 killers on it. That's really, really strong. And then there's Perfect Provocation, which is basically a 100% provoke materia, which is kind of neat. Because, you know, especially for newer players, building a provoke unit is sometimes really difficult, and this basically takes care of it. So, you know, for those people that don't have like the Dancer's Diadem, they don't have Moogle Charms or like the gear necessary to build a provoke unit really well, this materia is fantastic. You just slap it on there and you're done. Really, really easy. I would say pick up 1. I don't think there's any need to pick up 2. They usually have 2 copies of both the materias. I don't see any reason to pick up 2 of these. If you can think of a reason, leave a comment in the comments below, right? But I just don't see any reason to have 2 of them. But 1 is definitely, I think, a good idea. All right. And that's pretty much it for the news on Clash of Wills. I don't think there was anything else. No, there's not really anything else interesting going on in that. So let's just get straight to the units, some unit discussion. All right. So again, if you're not... as I mentioned last time, if you didn't know this, you can go into the Clash of Wills and play around with teams before the boss actually starts up. And so you see it's still got the old boss up there, Nabanoga, but you can go in and you can click Manage Party, and it will bring up the party screen. And you can go in and you can move units around, you can save teams that you haven't, like if you're, you know, this is essentially what I'm doing here is I'm sort of planning ahead a little bit, trying to get some ideas and, you know, put some units out there that will help you guys sort of plan for the upcoming Clash of Wills, right? And so this team that you see here, this is the team that I intend to go in and just sort of first turn knockout all the way up to level 99. I'm hoping it will work all the way up to level 99. You see I've got my Flaring Aether Rain there in the leader skill slot, so he's buffing up everybody on the team except for Vaughn, but Vaughn is really just there to break and to imperil. All right, and I'm hoping this team will get me a first turn kill. Basically, we've got Roberta to imbue, imperil, and amp the party to fire, and then she'll do a little bit of chaining to get the chain going. Chizuru and Rain and Reagan will then chain and hopefully kill the boss after Vaughn is imperiled by 160% and with his breaks. And then Sylvie's, of course, there for buffs. She's got the 250% single target stone killer, which will go to Rain. All right, and it also does a 150% killer buff to the rest of the party. And then also will buff up his LB damage. So yeah, this will hopefully get me through a first turn knockout all the way up to level 99. I'll cover the gear just a little bit, just to look at some of the gear. So obviously, Sylvie will be wearing the Dancer's Diadem. She'll be the provoke unit in pretty much every team on this one. We could use that new materia. on her once we acquire it, but this is a pretty standard build for my Sylvie. Basically just as much bulk as I can get on her. She's, you know, almost always the provoke unit. Blizzard Orbs, just in case she takes some damage, and she can put re-raise on everybody, right? As for Roberta, I'm not too worried about her damage on this particular team, right? So I haven't even really geared her on this one, but you can see she's still got a pretty good stat line thanks to that leader skill. She's just here to buff up on turn 1. All right, Rain, however, is going to be bringing it. So obviously, you know, I've given him a lot of Clash of Wills gear. You see, I have an Emperor's there. I upgraded that for Dark Visions so that I could finally get that 23 billion damage for that, so that I can hit that milestone. I'm going to convert that back to Magisters. And actually, I'm going to do that right after I'm done with this video. So I'm glad that reminded me. All right. But yeah, he'll have a lot of Clash of Wills gear here. He doesn't need too much on the killers. See, it's pretty easy to max out his killers. I do have that 50% extra beast killer on my Ifrit awakened. All right, so he's 300 stone, 350 beast. All right, he's ready to rock and roll. Gave him Wilk's card because it's the strongest one that I have. All right, and you know, hopefully that's enough to just knock this guy out on turn 1. Pretty similar build to what he'll be for my actual rank 1 clear as well. All right, Vaughn honestly doesn't need anything because all he's doing is he's doing his oil for the 160% imperil, and then my brother's gone for the breaks. Literally all he's doing on turn 1. All right, and hopefully that's enough. Chizuru, all right, geared for the turn 1 knockout here. So she's got, all right, she's got some more cow gear that I have on her there. Ruler's Regalia, Magister's Ring. All right, she doesn't really need too much on the killers either. All right, 300 stone, 300 beasts with a slot left open, 300 LB damage. All right, and of course a cool smile for the mod boost. All right, which helps her on those first turn kills. Okay, so hopefully that's enough to get her through. And then Reagan. All right, so we've got Reagan. You know, pretty standard, just true dual wield build. He doesn't quite max out on Stone Killer, but that's fine. He hits Beast, all right. He's really here just to chain with Rain. I'm hoping Rain and Chizuru will carry, basically carry all the damage to kill this thing on the first turn. But it's nice because, you know, his LB is triple Mirror of Equity, so that he can chain with Rain, right? And so that's my plan for just clearing it up to level 99. Hopefully it works. As for my rank 1 team, this is my initial team I'm going to take in and try to get a rank 1 clear. All right, so this is just a team idea that I had. Obviously, I'm going to bring Abigail to tank. Okay, so this is, again, assuming that the boss is going to do predominantly non-elemental magic damage, right? So I'm assuming there's going to be a lot of magic damage and less physical damage. So, you know, Abby's in there for now. All right. We've got Rain, of course, with the leader skill. He'll be in there doing hopefully considerable damage. I'm really interested to see how his damage comes out in Clash of Wills. We've got Olive and Chizuru also dealing damage. The nice thing about those 3 damage dealers is they all have their own beast killer in their kit, which is really fantastic. And so Sylvie can then just come in and do the Stone Killer. All right. And Roberta also has Stone Killers in her kit, so keep that in mind, just in case you don't have Sylvie, right? Okay. You know, you could also bring Melissa. Melissa's got Beast Killer in her kit, but when you've got these 3 units already providing their own 200% or higher killer buffs to themselves, you don't really need an outside killer, you know, Beast Killer buffer, right? Okay, so that's why I'm throwing Sylvie in there instead of Melissa. Also, Sylvie's just a fantastic support, great for keeping people alive in general. Plus, you know, she brings the LB mod boost buff on her Brave Shift LB, so that'll be very, very helpful in helping everybody dish out some extra damage. Sylvie also can do triple Mirror of Equity to chain with Rain, and so can Abby, by the way. But just keep in mind, Abby's Mirror of Equity chains are light elemental locked because it's magic damage, pure magic damage. And so you have to make sure that there's a strong enough light imperil on the boss so that her hits actually chain. Okay, otherwise they'll just miss. But you can also weave Mirror of Equity into Extreme Nova chains. So I'm thinking that I'll still be able to get away with it, even if I don't have the action economy to let my Sylvie chain with Rain. I think Rain can still weave into Chizuru and Olive's Extreme Nova chains, right? So I'm not too worried about that. As for the gear, Abby is geared for mainly dark resist because as we saw in the news, it really only listed dark elemental damage. So I've just given her as much dark resist as I can for 30. All right, and then we've got Sylvie providing an 80% buff, so she'll have over 500% dark resist. So even if the boss does like a 300% imperil, she should be good to go. All right. Or sorry, like a 400. Yeah, the boss could do a 400% imperil actually. Well, let's keep that. We got to keep in mind that the bonus mods are going to knock 100% off, at least, right? So yeah, so the boss could still do a 300% imperil, and we could still survive it. All right, and still resist all that damage. Blizzard Orb, because she's definitely good for the counters for LB fill and healing and MP refill. Very, very nice, right? And then just a lot of dark resist gear. The Priestess's Vengeance, that's from the previous Clash of Wills season in the shop. Make sure you pick up that one. All right, and then the card from her Step Up banner. If you don't have this one, just, next best thing, right? Next best card you have to bulk her up. You can see she hits a pretty good spirit stat line there at over 11,000 spirit thanks to the leader skill from Rain. Okay, that's pretty sweet. And she's basically going to be doing, she's going to be doing a ton of support. She's going to be doing all of our breaks. She's going to handle all the breaks here. In Clash of Wills, higher breaks don't really give you that much more damage. It's not like in Dark Visions where, the difference between an 85 and a 90% break is like literally 50% more damage. In Clash of Wills, it's more like, 5% more damage. And so it's not that big of a deal. And she brings 87% breaks, which is going to be fine. That is going to be perfectly fine for this, all right? So Rain he needs to be geared in both forms, normal and brave shift, because he is a trance shifter, and his brave shift only lasts for 5 turns, and then you're stuck in normal form for 4 turns. And so he's got to be geared in both forms for damage. Right, so full-on killers in both forms. He doesn't need LB damage in his normal form. So in his normal form, he's going to use this skill, Pulverizing Force. And you may be looking at that modifier and thinking, well, that's not going to do any damage. But they gave him a really sweet Clash of Wills buff, all right? Strength of Will, and that buffs up that skill, Pulverizing Force. Okay, it buffs it up by... It buffs it up by 11, well, let's see, I'll do it by the percentage-wise, 110,000, right? And so it basically becomes a, I think I calculated it out, it's like a 3,700 times modifier at full morale, and that's on demand. And it's triple castable, so it's triple bolting strike for a 3,700 times modifier, which is pretty nice. Now, it also buffs his, it also buffs his Brave Shift LB. So in his Brave Shift form, you still want to use his LB, Scarlet Eruption. And for the first 5 turns, that gives him a pretty nice modifier of, I think, what was it? Shoot, I'm already forgetting now what that was. But his Brave Shifted LB is stronger than triple casting the Pulverizing Force. So when you can, you still want to use his Brave Shifted LB in Clash of Wills, assuming you have full morale. But when you don't have his LB up, or if you're in his normal form, you're going to use Pulverizing Force, and you're going to triple cast that, all right? Yeah, in his Brave Shift form, pretty much the exact same thing. Just make sure you're taking care of his LB damage, which is pretty easy to hit, stone and beast killers, right? And yeah, so he should be ready to rock and roll. Obviously, if we need to consider elemental resists for our whole party, things can change, right? But I'm hoping, since we have both Roberta and we've got Roberta and Sylvie and Abby in the party, I think we'll be covered on the physical side of things, because both Sylvie and Roberta can do 5 stacks of Party Mirage each. And then Abby can also do 2 stacks of Mirage. Now, they're all on cooldowns, so, you know, it'll just depend. Oh, and Chizuru can do 5 stacks of Mirage for the party, or 2 stacks on her LB in her normal form. So I'm thinking we've got the Mirage covered with this team. And so hopefully we can get by with just using Mirage to negate all the physical attacks. But yeah, we'll see, right? You never know. You never know. All right, so Olive's going to be bringing it. She gets the nice mag buff thanks to the leader skill. And so she does need 1 piece of Magister's gear for chain cap boost. So she's got a Magister's ring, Ruler's regalia, floral hairpin for some beast killers. And then, yeah, just trying to fill out her stone killer. She's still got this card. This card is fantastic. I've used this card on Olive like for the last, I think, last 4 or 5. Whenever I got the card, it's basically lived on Olive. And once again, the killers come in handy. It's got 100% stone killer, which is fantastic. Right, and here are some different stone killer materials. So she's good on stone killer. Only has 250 beast, but it's okay because she comes with her own 200% beast killer buff. On her mammals machines, and yeah, where is, oh yeah, there it is, 200% beast killer buff. So she's got her own 200% beast killer buff, so I'm not as worried about maxing out beast killer on her. All right, and yeah, she should be ready to rock and roll for this rank 1 clear. I'm hoping. Roberta is mainly here for the support, but you know, I did gear her for some damage. I gave her a sword. That way she can take advantage of Rain's 40% sword imperil. Okay. She's not the easiest to gear for the killers. Like she's only 225 beast, 275 stone, but that's all right. I think she's going to do just fine. Okay. And like I said, she's mainly here for the support. You notice I've got her starting in Brave Shift form. That's because she's wielding the Empress's Rod and the Treasure Memorial Ring for that turn 1 morale bump. Okay, so that's what that's there for. And yes, Sylvie, typical Clash of Wills gear, just lots of resists and bulk and provoke, right? So pretty much same thing in both forms. All right. Chizuru in her normal form, you know, geared for damage. You don't have to worry about LB damage in this form, but you definitely want to gear her for some damage. Tyvus' Spirit, I'm not sure if I'll end up using it, but it's there in case I need it. Gave her Esther's card for a little extra bit of stone killers, because it does have 50% stone killer on it, which is kind of nice. Okay, what is, I think she's maxed out. Yeah, she's maxed out on all that stuff because she's got beast and stone killer in her kit, so she maxes out on it really easy. In her Brave Shift form, yeah, again, just high attack gear. Make sure she's got killers topped off and LB damage, and she is good to go. I think Chizuru is really going to chew this boss up, at least I hope so, because she's got 250% killers to both races. So the Beast Pulverizer, 250% for 5 turns, with 150% to the party for 10 turns, which is just phenomenal. And then Stone Pulverizer, 250% stone killer, 150% to the whole party. Again, really nice. Like she's basically your support unit for this. Like she is the I think she's going to be the go-to unit for this Clash of Wills. Unless they do something to like just totally kneecap her, you know, kind of like what they did with Olivera in the last one. I thought Olivera was going to be like really phenomenal in the last Clash of Wills, but then they decided to make the boss immune, like 50% immune to human damage, so he just didn't do anything. Yeah, so this is just to give you an idea of the team that I'm thinking of for a rank 1 clear. Something more on like the budget side of things. Here's sort of a budget team idea that I had. And again, this is just throwing some sort of more budget units out there. I'm not necessarily going to use this team exactly, but you know, I'll kind of see what I can work out. X-Death is of course really great as a budget damage dealer because he's a meteor user, and he has 200% beast killer innately. I'm not going to show you, I haven't built these guys for gear. I'm really just here to show you the units, but I'll gear them once I actually get around to doing the clears. But X-Death has 200% innate beast killer, so he'll be sort of the meteor user to go for over Golbez this time, I think. You could probably still use Golbez because Golbez gears for killers even when he's off killer fairly easily, but I think X-Death is going to be the stronger one on this one. Okay. Seymour is still a really great pick because he's got Bar Darkja, which is really nice. That's a 200% dark resist buff. So he might still be really good as a magic tank for the upcoming Clash of Wills, seeing as it's doing predominantly dark damage. All right. Reagan is of course a free unit that we just got, very strong physical damage dealer, and you know, fairly easy to gear. So he'll definitely be on my budget squad. Sylvie of course will be there for the killer buffs and to chain with Reagan because we need somebody to chain triple Mirror of Equity for his limit burst. The old Neovision Rain is still a really great fire, imbue, and amper, and he's got an imperil in his Brave Shift form, so he's still useful in sort of a budget fashion. And then I have a red mage, Ingus. I've never used him for anything, and I'm kind of excited to give him a try, but he's really great because he does imperil fields. So he will do, where was it? Where are the imperil fields? Are they in the other form? They must be in the other form. Here it is. Yeah. Okay. So he's got 35% imperil fields to all 4 of these elements, but of course we're only interested in the fire one for this one. And he can chain Bolting Strike, which is really nice. And he's also got breaks, so you can do full breakdown for on-demand breaks, and then his Brave Shifted LB does 87% defense and spirit breaks with a 140% fire imperil, which is really nice. And so I'm kind of excited to try Ingus out on sort of a budget team. Notice I only have him EX1, but yeah. So Ingus could potentially be a unit that could just help you clear out the boss. You know, if you're just struggling to kill the boss, Ingus could be a really cool unit to bring in and play around with and try that out. So I'm excited to give him a try on this upcoming Clash of Wills. Now, for the rest of the time, I'm going to kind of focus on different categories of units. I'm not going to show you, like in the last video I showed you a bunch of like different teams that I had come up with. I'm not going to do that this time beyond the rank 1 and the budget and the FTKO. What I'd like to focus on now is different categories of units that I think will be really good for the upcoming Clash of Wills. Now keep in mind that this is sort of restricted to the units that I personally have. I'll call out some units that I think would fit in these categories that I don't have and can't show you personally. You know, I could go on my computer and show you different units on the wiki, but the nice thing about this is it kind of limits me to, six units per category, so I'm not like sitting here talking for hours and hours and hours about all the different units that you could potentially use. So it kind of streamlines it a little bit for me so that I'm only focusing on like sort of the top 5 or 6 units in each category. So I'll start with mag tanks, right? And I'll show you the different mag tanks that I think are going to be viable for the upcoming Clash of Wills, whether it be for rank 1 clears or just for helping you clear the boss up to level 99. Obviously Abby is going to be really strong. It doesn't need to be said that Abby is probably the best magic tank in the game. All right, she just is. She's just fantastic. She is the strongest mag tank that we have currently. So if you have her, definitely use her. Chow, however, if you're still, if you love Chow because you got him, way back when you got him on the rerun banner and you've always been like a fan of Chow, I think he'll be great on this one as well because he has beast mitigation in his kit. So I think he will be a very, very strong option here. I don't know if he'll be strong enough to omni-tank. It depends on how much physical damage the boss throws at us, but he should certainly be able to handle the magic tanking side of things. There wasn't any mention of like increased damage against beasts or anything like that, like the last Clash of Wills. So I think he'll be fine. All right. Maeve is, an old unit, but she's still, and I should put her in her brave shift form because that's where the mag tank side of things is. But, she's still a viable option, and she also, much like Chow, she has beast mitigations in her kit. She also has 150% beast killers to the party when you're in Clash of Wills. So she can be your killer buffer as well, and as well as tanking for you. Other than that, she's not bringing a whole lot. She does have break resistance in her kit on demand, so that's a nice morale bump plus ailment resistance and all of that stuff. So, she might be viable in like more budget clears and things like that. We'll just have to wait and see though. But, it might be possible, like the previous Clash of Wills boss, he had like 2 turns of magic damage followed by 1 turn of physical damage. And the nice thing about Maeve is that she can switch back and forth to magic and physical. So in her normal form, she's a physical tank. And so if we get something similar to the previous Clash boss, Nabanoga, you could actually get away with doing, keeping her as a magic tank on the turns where it's doing only magic damage and then switching her to physical form when it does a turn with just physical. We'll have to see what the boss does, but that's an option. Same thing goes with Snow. Snow is a very strong magic tank. He doesn't really get as much credit as he deserves, but you do have to keep in mind you have to upgrade him. So he has some crown upgrades that really help make him a very strong tank. But with his crowns and everything, it's very easy to maintain his personal 90% general mitigation, which just makes him a really, really bulky tank. So keep that in mind. And much like Maeve, he's a magic tank in Brave Shift and a physical tank in normal form. So if the boss actually does different damage on different turns as opposed to mixing the 2 damage types, he could be viable for switching to account for those 2. Ashe is going to be, I think, a pretty strong tank on this one, mainly because her normal form LB does a really strong attack and mag break, of course, but it also does 85% stone mitigation, okay, which is really, really strong. And that could definitely help her if the boss is doing really, really strong magic damage. That could help her survive, right? Let's keep that in mind. Also, she's got killers for the party. She's got stone killers for the party, 150% on her LB with some nice full buffs for the party, 350% full buff, re-raise, 250% LB damage buff. Really, really nice. So she's a tank and a buffer. And she's got single target, which one is it? Parting with the Gods. Single target, 250% stone killer, which is really, really nice. So, yeah, she could be viable for this one, I think, as a magic tank. Certainly. And last but not least, we have Cecil. Cecil is just a fantastic all-around tank. He's got a 200% dark buff in his kit. So even if the boss is doing like, AoE dark physical damage, he's going to be buffing up the party and keeping them alive. He's got Omni cover in his kit, even if it's only for 1 turn. He's got an LB damage field if you start him in his normal form. Cecil is just a fantastic magic tank. So if you have him, I think he'll definitely be very, very strong for this Clash of Wills. All right. There are certainly some budget options, like Beatrix is always great as a budget option just for clearing the boss and just for killing the boss up to level 99. I think she'll still be viable for this one. But these are just some of the, the top 6 that I was thinking of when it comes to magic tanks. All right, now, if the boss ends up doing a lot of physical damage and less magic damage, or maybe the magic damage is all elemental, so you can potentially bring you know, a buffer unit with like Bar Darkja that can take care of it, like Melissa or something like that. If you need a physical tank, you know, here are some of the options that I think are, you know, pretty good. Esther is still extremely strong as a physical tank. She's got stone mitigations in her kit, 75% physical stone mitigations in her kit. She's a really, really tanky physical tank. And, you know, she can also help you dish out some damage if you need to. She's got an LB field on her normal form limit burst, if you need that, of course. If you don't, you just keep her in her Brave Shift form and you just keep rocking it out. So she's a really, really great pick for a physical tank. We haven't really needed a physical tank in a long time, but she could work. She could also work as an Omni tank. If you saw, I did a clear with her against Nobunaga, the previous boss, who did a lot of magic damage, but was able to actually build Esther well enough that she was able to tank it fairly competently. Now, of course, it does require a lot of gear. It requires the step-up card on Abigail's banner to make her viable, and at that point you probably have Abigail anyways. But if the boss is doing like a ton of both physical and magic, and you really need an Omni tank, then Esther is definitely going to be the best bet for you on that one. Of course, a good budget option for a physical tank, Runda is still fantastic, still just amazing. So Runda's always a great pick. And since it's a fire weak boss, you could bring Tyvis and use Runda to buff up Tyvis's limit burst, his SLB. Potentially could actually be used there as a budget option. Of course, Maeve, she's a physical tank. Same with Snow, I already talked about them. And then Behemi, you know, he's not a bad physical tank, but I think he's just old. I think he would need a lot of external support in order to actually be able to tank anything. But he has really good evasion, so if the boss isn't using too much accuracy, he could potentially still work. So that's something to keep in mind. And then of course you got Jecht. He's a premium unit, but still a really strong physical tank. I don't know if he's necessarily going to be viable for this one. He might be viable for the next cow or the one after. It looks like there's going to be a water elemental Clash of Wills coming up, so he might be more viable for that one. But it's good to keep him in mind. He is a strong tank. All right, now support units, it's a big umbrella term, and a lot of characters sort of fit under the term support. So when I say support, I mean units that are, you know, great at buffing the party, great at, you know, buffing stats, buffing stalemate, ailment resist, buffing elemental resist, buffing killers, you know, those types of things. And so these are the units that are going to help you, or units that just generally help you survive and deal more damage. Okay. And so these are sort of the top units that I think fit into this category for me personally. We've got Roberta, right? Roberta is just a fantastic all-around support unit. She's got 350% full buff that is non-dispellable, which is awesome. 300% LB damage buff on her normal form LB, and I'll just show you that real quick. All right, so fantastic. 350% full buff, non-dispellable for 5 turns. 300% LB damage buff for 5 turns, non-dispellable. Fantastic. Not only that, she's got stone killers in her kit, right? So give everybody some stone killers as well as stone mitigation, which could come in handy for the physical damage. She's got an all-in-one fire imperil, fire imbue, 45% amp for the party on demand, which is awesome in case you get dispelled. And then she's also over here, you know, dishing out some good damage. This is a quad castable ability, so at full morale, it goes up to something like 4,000 times modifier. It's a tag team chaining move. Everything weaves into it. It's like the best thing ever. So, you know, she's just a fantastic unit. She can also remove all your imperils, right? She can remove your imperils. She can do some LB fill, do a perfect dispel on the party. She can do 5 stacks of Mirage. Really, really great all-around support unit here. And she can fill some morale while you're at it. Okay? Doesn't even need to be EX2, or, you know, EX1. Really, everything you're going to use is going to be in her normal form, right? And then Melissa is, of course, just a fantastic all-around support. You may notice Sylvie's missing on this list, but that's because I already mentioned her before. I didn't want to mention her again. Sylvie is, of course, still the best support unit, in my opinion. But Melissa is right there behind her, probably in the number 2 slot as a general support unit, especially since we've got a Dark Week boss. And so she's got the 100% Dark Amps for the party. She's got the Dark Imbue to the boss with Dark Absorb for the party, which you can potentially have for 4 turns, which is really, really nice. She does have Beast Killers in her kit, so she's got 250% Beast Killers in her kit. Okay. And she can use that once every turn, which is really, really nice. Also does 150% to the whole party. She's got Beast mitigations for the party, 55%, which is very, very nice. She also has this neat Seconds of Support, which does a up to 60 times mod boost to morale scaling LBs for a single target. So she's got a lot of really, really cool abilities in her kit that just make her an excellent support for this one. Now, Kresnik is still good. I think Kresnik is still good just for morale generation. If you don't have a lot of units that are good at building up morale for your party, Kresnik is still fantastic at doing that. And he's also just generally good for keeping your party alive. He's got heals, he's got all the support skills you would want for keeping your party alive and kicking. And so if you're just having trouble surviving the boss, Kresnik is a really great unit to bring along to sort of help keep you going. Ling is, she's still a bit old, but she's an oldie but goodie. She does have Beast Killers in her kit, and she's got lots of different forms of Mirage. So she's got her Celestial Dance, which does 4 stacks of Mirage for the party, right? She's got an on-demand 2-stack Mirage with Refreshing Twirl, which could be very, very handy depending on how much physical damage the boss is doing. And then her Brave Shifted LB does 5 stacks of Mirage for the party. So she's got a lot of sources of Mirage. And if you're bringing a magic tank to cover the magic damage, a unit like Ling could really help you survive the physical attacks that are coming in, right? She can also imbue the party with fire and amp fire by 25%, and I think it comes with a 120% imperil, which isn't great, but for a budget clear, could be very, very, very good. We've got Summoner Lena. Really, she's here mainly for her upgraded normal form limit burst, and you have to dump 2 crowns in it. So hopefully you did the silver crowns for Lena to upgrade this, but it's really nice because it does a 25% fire imperil field to the enemy and a 40% fire amp to the party, and that is really, really nice. So that's why she's here, but she also does some breaks. 88% full break, which in Clash of Wills is phenomenal. I mean, that's really, really good. That's all you need. Like, you're done. 88%, you're good. And she does chain, I believe that's triple Mirror of Equity. Correct me if I'm wrong. And it's a physical type magic damage, so it's imbuable. So you can imbue her with whatever element you want and go, which is really nice. Okay, she's got some other unique skills in her kit, but really that's sort of the extent of her support, but that's still really great. Breaks plus a really nice field to go along with your fire party. Really, really nice. Tsukiko is also really great, just as a general support unit. A lot of fantastic support skills in her kit. All right, she's got buffs, she's got mitigations. All right, she's got imperil removal. She's got break removal. She's got ailment removal. So she's got all these nice removals. She also imperils fire. She imbues fire, and she does a fire imperil field. And on top of all that, she can actually dish out some decent damage in Clash of Wills with her Blazing Karmic Retribution. So Tsukiko could definitely be seen as a viable unit, support unit in this upcoming Clash of Wills. Now, sort of, why did that go that way? So in the sort of same vein as support units, I kind of think breakers also kind of fit into this category a little bit. especially breakers like Kaito, who basically can do so many different things for the party. All right, Kaito does breaks, he does damage, he does imperils, he does killer buffs, killer mitigation, or racial mitigations. They don't really line up. The racial buffs don't really line up with the upcoming boss, but I think they will in a future Clash of Wills boss for certain. Now for the upcoming boss, I think Vaughn will be a good choice for a breaker imperiler. He does 160% fire imperil. He can do that to start the battle too with oil, and then on his SLB, it's an 89% defense break with 160% fire imperil. Okay, does a little bit of damage, but it's inconsequential, right? But he does do bolting strike chain, so he can, on turns where he's not breaking or imperiling, he can chain with your chainers that do bolting strikes. So very useful. He can also do on-demand 2 stacks of Mirage for the party. So again, that could be very important if you're bringing a magic tank and you're relying on Mirage to keep your party from taking too much physical damage, right? So Vaughn could be very, very useful in this the upcoming Clash of Wills here. If you do decide you want to go with a lightning team, Edge would probably be a good breaker for you. I really wish they would upgrade Edge. He's supposed to get a 160% lightning peril with an 89% defense break, but Gumi has just decided they're not going to do that. But he still has decent breaks for Clash of Wills. 87% is fine for Clash of Wills with a 145% lightning imperil. It deals some inconsequential damage, but he can chain bolting strike, and he can chain mirror of equity. So, if you are using someone like Rain, of course, if you're using Rain, you're going fire. So that doesn't really make any sense. But, he can chain mirror of equity if you need to, or he can chain bolting strike. He also has on-demand 2-stack Mirage for the party. So again, if Mirage is something that is going to be important for the upcoming Clash, he could be useful in that respect. I've put Golbez in the sort of breaker because he does have 88% breaks with a 150% dark imperil. He's still arguably one of the better dark imperil units. You notice I don't have Gilgamesh on this list because I don't own Gilgamesh personally, but Gilgamesh, the new Gilgamesh, could also obviously be a really strong unit here. All right, Vlad, I put Vlad on this list. He's not a breaker, I know, but I put him on this list more for the imperil and the imperil field because he does do a 35% dark imperil field. So if you're going with a dark team, he could be a viable unit for that dark imperil field for you. All right, that's the only reason why I put Vlad on this list. And then as sort of a budget option, I threw Reno on here because if you did his Silver Crowns, he's actually a fairly competent breaker. His Pyramid's Peak gets an 88% defense and spirit break. And I believe, did it upgrade his LB as well? No, it didn't upgrade the LB. But still, he gets that 88% break, which is really nice. He can do a lightning imperil. So if you are going with a lightning team, he can also chain Mirror of Equity or Bolting Strike or Stardust Ray. So he's got 3 different chain families. So he could be good as a support breaker, imperiler if you're going with lightning and all of that. So I just threw him on the list just to sort of remind you that he's there as a budget option. All right. I keep backing all the way out. All right. And so now I'm going to talk a little bit about damage dealers. So I've got 2 squads of strictly damage dealers that I think will be, sort of the damage dealers that I think are most viable for the upcoming Clash of Wills. It's certainly not a comprehensive list. Like I said, I wanted to try and limit myself so I'm not sitting here talking to you for just hours and hours and hours. This video is already probably getting so long, you're like, why is this guy still talking? Just get it over with. And so this is not a comprehensive list, and also just keep in mind I don't have every single unit in the game. I'll certainly mention some units that I don't have that I think will also fit into this category, namely like Ibarra, Deoxys, especially if you're going with a dark team. The new Ibarra is definitely, I think, going to slaughter this upcoming Clash. I think she'll be able to take it no problem. She's an extremely strong unit. Deoxys will of course be really, really valuable on dark teams if you're going dark element. but I don't have either one of those units, so they're not going to be on this list. So we'll start with this list, okay, and these are sort of my top. These are sort of the top 6 for me personally. I think Chizuru is going to be really, really strong in this one. I've mentioned it before. I'm going to say it again. Chizuru is going to be really strong because she's got 250% killers to both races, and she's still just a fantastic support and damage dealer for Clash of Wills. She was broken on day 1. She is still fantastic. Definitely the best investment I've made in a unit in a long time. She's just awesome. Olive, of course, is still extremely strong. She carried basically every she carried every Clash of Wills last season for me. She was just fantastic. She is a phenomenal damage dealer, and she's got beast killers in her kit. So yeah, she's definitely going to be on a lot of Clash of Wills teams. Obviously, flaring Aether Rain, if you got him, he's going to be extremely strong. You know, just a strong leader. He's got beast killers in his kit. He's going to be really, really fantastic. The near units, you know, they're still great. And if you plan on polling for the new Dwayne, the near units are really going to love that leader skill, that 300% cow tagged leader skill, because near units do have the Clash of Wills tag. Now you see I put 2B in that slot. Doesn't mean A2's not bad, and in fact A2 might have a slight edge over 2B on this one because she's got a little more beast killer in her kit. I think she's a little bit easier to gear for beast killers, and so A2 might have a slight edge on 2B, but personally I still think 2B is the better of the 2 units. But you know, if you don't have 2B and you only have A2, I think A2 will be a good unit to use, but that may depend on whether or not you have Dwayne. It may require Dwayne, just depending on how they tune the Clash of Wills boss. You may need Dwayne to make the near units strong enough to get you across the finish line. I'm not really sure. We'll just have to wait and see. Esther is still, you know, even though her damage has sort of fallen behind since she came out, she still has, you know, she's easy to gear for the killers on this one because she's got tons of stone killer in her kit. And so she's still a viable unit as long as you give her, you know, good enough support. Sky is on there because if you have her intrinsic ability, she basically caps out beast killers with her intrinsic ability. So then all you have to do is build her for stone killers, which isn't too hard. And she's still an extremely strong damage dealer. Like her limit burst modifier is still one of the highest in the game. And so, and she can wield katanas innately, so give her the Dark Visions katana. Make sure you've got a katana Imperial on the field, and she can still dish out some serious damage, right? So I think she's still a very, very strong unit to bring into Clash of Wills, personally. All right, my second, and so this is more of like the you know, units I don't think I necessarily recommend, but are still viable, I think, for the upcoming Clash of Wills. So, you know, I mentioned X-Death already. If you're really into using Meteor units, X-Death is going to be the one to go for. Now, unfortunately, we don't have a leader skill that works for him. So if you have Ibarra, then you're going to obviously want to bring in Golbez instead. All right, because Ibarra will buff Golbez, so will Deoxys, in fact. So, you know, even though X-Death is easier to build for the killers, Golbez will be the one to bring because you can match up the leader skill if you have Ibarra or Dio. I put Cloud in there, even though he's sort of like a lightning, he prefers lightning element. This, you know, the boss will be weak to lightning, so you could go lightning element with him. But Cloud does have the Clash of Wills tag, so if you do pull for Dwayne, Cloud will get the leader skill buff from Dwayne because Cloud has the Clash of Wills tag, and he does have that one, because he has that one ability in his kit that they gave him that has Clash of Wills attached to it. So because of that, Cloud gets a cow tag. So if you pull for Dwayne, you can use Cloud Strife. So keep that in mind. And Cloud is also not locked to lightning. He prefers lightning, certainly. He's stronger All right, lightning is his strongest element, but he is also not locked to lightning. And so you can use any element with cloud. Keep that in mind. We've got Sephiroth. Obviously, if you're running a dark team and you have Deoxys or Ibarra, Sephiroth, even though he doesn't have any kind of like Clash of Wills upgrades or anything like that, he got some really nice crown buffs. He has a 150% dark amp, so he still hits hard, even though he doesn't have, any Clash of Wills buffs or anything like that. And you can give him like Titus's STMR and like bump his LB mod up to like 500 something. And with a 150% amp, he's still going to dish out some good damage for your burst turn. All right, so definitely keep Sephiroth in mind if you're running a dark team. He's a very, very strong dark damage dealer, but you need either Ibarra or Deoxys, I think, to make him viable in a rank 1 clear. You see I've thrown Lara Croft on there. We've kind of forgotten about Lara Croft because she's been basically lost in the sands of time for several months now. But if you have a Flaring Aether Rain, she is fire tagged. She is a fire tagged unit, and thus she will get leader skill buffs from Flaring Aether Rain. She's also a Cow unit, so if you get Dwayne, she'll get buffs from the Clash of Wills tag. So she has both tags, and it's easy to forget that she's got a fairly decent modifier, like a 3,500 times modifier on her Clash of Wills skills. She also comes with the 90% break on volatile ammunition. It does a 90% break, 135% imperil, 60% amp to herself, with a 3,500 times modifier. And she has 200% Beast Killer to herself, which also does the 3,500 times modifier. So who knows? You may be able to sort of dig Lara out of the trash and recycle and reuse her in the upcoming Clash of Wills. Maybe not for a rank 1, but maybe for just clearing out the boss up to level 99, right? I've thrown Oliveira back in there. He didn't really get his chance to shine last Clash of Wills. I don't know that he's necessarily going to get a chance to do it on this one, but if you have his intrinsic ability, it does give him some beast killers, and he has stone killers in his kit innately, and he has stone killer buffs in his kit, and he is a dark unit, so he may potentially see some use in this Clash of Wills, especially if you're like looking for EX levels and he's like the only unit you have to EX3 because you off-bandered a whole bunch of them. He may be viable for this Clash of Wills with the killers that he has in his kit. All right, and just keep in mind, if you pair him up with Melissa with the 100% amp, she can also he can quadruple dip on her Seconds of Support ability and get a 240 times mod buff, which is certainly nothing to sneeze at. So he could potentially see some use again in the upcoming Clash of Wills. And I've got the old Ibarra on there. The old Ibarra, was actually, she was decent in the previous Clash of Wills. So as a budget option, if you have her EX3 because you pulled on her way back when, and you're struggling to hit EX levels, she might still be a viable pick for this one. She's still absolutely atrocious to build for killers, and so I think this one's really going to hurt trying to build her for killers and LB damage and all of that stuff. But if that's all you got, that's all you got. And so she does deal strong dark damage in her Brave Shift form. She can deal lightning damage in her normal form. You'll probably want to stick with dark damage though. But that's just something to consider, right? So don't forget about Ibarra. She is still there. She does still do some damage, but she may be much harder to gear on the upcoming Clash of Wills than she was for the previous one. All right. And I think that pretty much sums it up, right? I don't want to talk to you guys too much and talk until your ears fall off, but I just wanted to sort of cover some of the bases and cover some ideas that I had, throw some ideas out there for preparing for the upcoming Clash of Wills. Hopefully this was helpful to you guys. If it was, definitely let me know in the comments below. If there's anything that I didn't cover, or if you just want to throw out some of your own ideas for different team compositions, different units that you think will be really useful, definitely use the comment section below to kind of, you know, make this a resource for other people to use, and talk about, discuss ideas. That's perfectly fine. You know, discuss away in the comments below. We'd love to see it. So thank you guys so much for following me. I'm going to go rest my voice. I'm getting kind of hoarse, and hopefully I will see you on the other side.